You probably heard some things about grief, like 5 stages of grief, or that you should be over it by a certain point. Or what if I told you that most of what we think we know about grief isn't actually true? So today we are breaking down some of the biggest myths about griefs so you can better understand your own experience or support someone you love. So let's get into it. Myth number 1. 5 stages of grief. This is the most common myth. When we grieve, we go through 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And this concept was introduced by psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in the 1960s, and her research was really important at the time. But here's the thing. The 5 stages were actually about people with terminal illnesses, so people facing their death, and not those grieving a loss. And over time, people started applying 5 stages of grief to all types of grief, but that's not how it works. Grief isn't linear. It doesn't follow a neat order of stages. And some people never feel anger. Some people never feel denial. Or you may feel all of it, but not in this order. And you can also feel something completely different. And most of us jump back and forth between different emotions and states. One day we feel okay, and the next day we feel overwhelmed. And that's normal. Why is it important to know this? You often see clients question their own grieving process. Am I grieving the right way? Why do I feel this and not that? Am I not supposed to be at a certain stage? Or when will I be at this stage? And this creates a lot of confusion and self-doubt, and we don't need that while grieving. It's hard enough already. And it's important to normalize that grief can be messy, it's unpredictable, and there is no right or wrong way to do it. Myth number 2, grief is a disorder and needs to be fixed. This is a very common and a very harmful myth. On one hand, it's understandable why we may think this way, because grief can bring both physical and emotional symptoms that make us feel like we are sick, that we are falling apart, that we are not healthy. And we may feel forgetful, exhausted, irritated, or experience physical pain and tension and lots of other things. However, when it comes to grief, it's absolutely not a disease or a disorder. Grief is a natural response to loss. It is our body and mind trying to make sense of the new reality and to navigate the world after the loss. And all these symptoms signal that we are going through a lot of emotional and physical stress while we are adapting to this new reality. It's a full body experience, and it's completely normal to feel different from how we used to be. It would be actually highly unnatural to feel the same after a loss. On a side note, yes, there are certain cases when grief can become complicated and cause issues that may need medical help. However, these are very specific cases, and they should be addressed and decided upon by specialists. Other than that, grief, again, is one of the most natural things to experience. It's like any other state or phase we go through. Like, we can be in love, we can be happy, we can be sad, and we can grieve. It's the most human experience, and it's not something to fix or cure because it's not a disease. Again, grief is a natural response to loss. Myth number 3, grief has a set timeline. One of the most harmful myths about grief is that we should move on or get over within a certain time, like 6 months, a year, some other period. There are different opinions about it. The truth is, there is no timeline for grief. Every process is different, and grief isn't just an immediate sadness we experience after the loss. And again, there are no set stages of grief that end a specific time, and after that you're completely free from grief for the rest of your life. No, it doesn't work like that. Grief can be a complex process of navigating a new reality after a change or loss. And sometimes, and I can tell that from my own experience, grief can stay with us for our whole life, especially when we lose someone to death. And even if you have processed your loss, you can still experience moments of grief at any point of your life. For example, you might feel okay for a long time, and then something like an anniversary, a song, picture brings the grief back. But that doesn't mean you are stuck or not healthy. It means you're human and you have feelings, you have memories. Why is it important to know that? Because again, we may have expectations that after 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, we should feel a certain way. Or others in our family, in our environment may expect us to feel a certain way. Sometimes that's just not the case, and that's absolutely normal. Again, there is no right or wrong way to grieve. You will process your grief in your own way at your own pace. The only thing that I find true is that if you feel overwhelmed at any moment of grief, it's very important to ask for help. Myth number 4, grief only means feeling sad. When we think of grief, we often picture sadness. But grief can be so much more than that. It can include anger, feeling frustrated at the world, at doctors, at your family, at yourself. It can look like guilt, regret, or shame because something was done or wasn't done. It can look like relief, especially if you were caring for someone who was suffering or if your relationship was difficult. It can feel like numbness, where you cannot feel anything at all. It can look like confusion, gratitude, loneliness, or anything else. It can also contain moments of joy, and some of us may feel guilty for this. So feelings can also be mixed or even contradictory. For example, we can feel both sadness and relief at the same time, or we can be angry and confused at the same time. Grief can seriously be anything. The feelings you have while grieving will reflect the relationship you had with the person or thing you lost, your character, the environment you are in, and many other factors. So it's really unique for everyone because, of course, our relationships are unique, our characters are unique, the ways we cope are unique, and our personalities are unique, environments are unique. So will be our grief. And we should allow all the feelings that come up and let go of the expectation that we should feel a certain way. There are no bad or good feelings during grief. Each feeling is a signal that some need is inside of us, that something needs to be addressed. So there is no right or wrong way to grieve. And there are many more myths that we'll explore in further videos. So if you don't want to miss new releases, subscribe to my channel, and I will also put a link in the description for you to discover more videos on grief and mental health. And I would be very curious to know, what are your beliefs about grief, or maybe what you find helpful and unhelpful when it comes to grief. So please leave a comment and I'll make sure I'll answer. Thank you for watching. Be well.